So when you think about making your own syrup, your mind probably jumps straight to a grove of maple trees, right? But the forest holds other secrets. Today we're diving into a different kind of liquid gold, one you might have walked right past your entire life without even knowing it was there.
Let me ask you something. Is maple really the only game in town when it comes to tapping trees? I mean, for most people, the answer is probably a hard yes. But for the adventurous types, for the homesteaders out there, that's really just the beginning of the story.
And what's the reward for looking beyond the usual suspects? Well, a completely different, unbelievable flavor profile. We're not talking about a little tiny variation here. We are talking about a syrup that tastes like liquid butterscotch, or this rich, deep caramel. It's a gourmet product you literally can't buy in a store.
And the source of this incredible flavor? It's a tree you've probably seen 100 times, the magnificent American sycamore. This thing is a giant of the forest, but it's often totally overlooked in the world of sugaring. But it holds a truly delicious secret.
Okay, so your first step is actually finding one. The good news is the sycamore, which people sometimes call the ghost tree, is one of the easiest trees to spot, especially once the leaves are gone for the winter.
The bark is your #1 clue. You want to look for this flaky, almost camouflage pattern brown bark down at the base. Then, as you look up the tree, you'll see it just peels away, revealing this stark, smooth, white inner bark. It's really striking. The upper branches seriously look like bleached bones against the winter sky. So if you find a massive tree near a river with that kind of bark, you've almost certainly found your sycamore.
All right, so if this syrup is so delicious, you're probably wondering, why isn't it on every shelf in every store? Well, that brings us to the challenge. See, making sycamore syrup is a true craft, and, it requires a little bit more patience than its famous maple cousin.
It all really comes down to sugar content. Maple sap is just naturally sweeter, usually sitting at about 2 to 3% sugar. Sycamore sap, on the other hand, is only about half as sweet. Now, that might not sound like a huge difference, but believe me, it has a massive impact on the whole process. And here's what that lower sugar content actually means in practice. To get just 1 gallon of maple syrup, you've got to boil down about 40 gallons of sap. But for sycamore, yeah, you're looking at 60 gallons, maybe even more. That means more time, more fuel, and a whole lot more steam.
And this, right here, this is exactly why you don't see it for sale. It's just not efficient enough for mass production. But for a homesteader, for someone who really values unique flavors, and that deep satisfaction of making something special, it is the perfect labor of love.
And the challenges don't just stop with the sugar either. The actual mechanics of how the sap flows are different. Maples are total superstars. They use positive pressure to literally push the sap out during those freeze-thaw cycles. Sycamores, they rely more on root pressure, which means the flow can be slower, a lot less dramatic, so patience is definitely key.
All right, so let's say you've collected your 60+ gallons of sap and you're ready to boil. There's one more unique little quirk to this craft, a little secret you need to know if you want to get that perfect, clear syrup. Let's talk about the Pectin Puzzle.
You've heard of pectin, right? It's the same stuff that makes your jam and jelly set up. Well, turns out sycamore sap has a lot of it. As you boil the sap down, this pectin can kind of fall out of solution and make your syrup cloudy. Now, it's perfectly safe and it tastes just fine, but if you're really aiming for that crystal clear, golden look, you need a plan.
And here's the plan. It's actually a pretty simple 2-step process. First, you've got to filter the syrup while it's still hot and use a proper syrup filter, not just cheesecloth. This is going to catch the bulk of that pectin and other gunk called sugar sand. Then, step 2 is just let it rest. This allows any of that remaining sediment to settle to the bottom so you can carefully pour off that beautiful clear syrup right from the top. Easy.
So after all that work, finding the tree, collecting all that extra sap, solving the pectin puzzle, we finally get to the best part, the reward. And let me tell you, it is worth every single drop.
Let's just come back to this amazing comparison. Maple is wonderful. We all love it with its rich, woody character. But sycamore, it's a whole different world. That butterscotch and honey flavor, with just a tiny hint of malt, is something truly, truly special. It's fantastic for things like glazing meats or drizzling on desserts where you want a really complex flavor, not just straight-up sweetness.
So what are the big takeaways here? First, you get a gourmet flavor in your pantry that basically nobody else has ever tried. Second, sycamores can sometimes run sap at different times than maples, which means you might be able to extend your whole sugaring season. And finally, look, If you don't have maples, but you're surrounded by sycamores, you don't have to miss out on the magic of making your own syrup.
And you know, at the end of the day, it really comes down to this moment. After all that effort, that first taste of warm, homemade butterscotch syrup on a fresh stack of pancakes, it makes every single hour of boiling totally worth it. It's a connection to the land and a flavor that tells a story of patience and craft.
So yeah, maple may be the king, but it's not the only royalty out there in the forest. It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What other delicious secrets are hiding in plain sight? Maybe even right in your own backyard.